Is it safe to come out now? Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you are doing well. Today, with a huge lump in my throat, my heart pumping, and fear flowing throughout my body, I have decided to do a little bit of a sequel to, I guess what you could call a series, where I am coming on here and talking about why certain records that are just considered classic are actually classic, because I think an album being quality, withstanding the test of time, continuing to influence artists and resonate with audiences, does in fact make it a classic, regardless of the perfection of that track list from front to back. Where I'm talking about classic records here, and why, in my opinion, though they may be classic, they are not perfect records. They are not 10 out of 10 in my eyes. I decided to kick this series off with the ever so popular Thriller, possibly the most critically acclaimed and beloved pop album of all time. And today I'm going to be talking about another record that holds quite a bit of water with music fans both young and old. That is the Beatles album, Sgt Pepper's and His Lonely Hearts Club Band. Sgt. Pepper's and his, what am I, a fucking idiot? 1967 LP from the Beatles, and one of many that I have enjoyed from them over the years. Widely regarded to be one of their most ambitious instrumental undertakings, an essential album in their catalog because it did lay a lot of the groundwork for what creatively they would go on to do later. Also an album that many fans like to pit against other classics, such as freaking The Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. Both records came out around the same time. Both are similarly instrumentally lush and dense. And though I do think Pet Sounds did have the stronger crop of songs from front to back, instrumentally and aesthetically, Sgt. Pepper's did a lot more for expanding, aesthetically speaking, the popular music vocabulary. And look, some of my favorite Beatles songs of all time land on this record. The Sgt. Pepper's intro makes for a rockin' introduction to the LP. The reprise later on the record is fantastic and, you know, brings a nice kind of togetherness to the whole experience, makes it seem like the band was at least trying to an extent to see big picture on this one. With a little help from my friends is one of the Beatles' best songs ever, and one of the songs that from them is so great, the popularity of it kind of transcends the Beatles itself. Also amazing that they allowed Ringo to sing one of the best songs in the band's discography. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, you don't really get more classic Beatles than that. And Getting Better is another song that is so great, it pretty much transcends the Beatles' iconography too. But let's stay focused on the task at hand here, because obviously this video is about why this album is not a 10, so I can't spend the next 5 to 10 minutes giving it a BJ. Let's move on to the track She's Leaving Home, which reads like a really tedious musical theater production where McCartney sings a story about a young girl leaving home despite the fact that her parents did everything that they could to take care of her and so on and so forth. Oh, our baby's gone, it's tragic. And while to some degree I'm sure that was the case, even for the news story that was said to have inspired this song, looking at a general read of the track, especially during the era in which it was released, it hasn't exactly aged as well as it could when it comes to, I don't know, the idea of a child or, you know, female autonomy, especially when you're talking about things like doting or controlling parents. But truly and honestly, my biggest issue with this track is that the tune is not really all that good, and I think suffers greatly at the hand of the narrative and, you know, McCartney and Lennon essentially trying to stuff 10 pounds of weepy, dramatic feelings into a 5-pound bag. Now, in this record's defense, there is a prime example of narrative and song balancing really well toward the back end of the LP on A Day in the Life. That is an amazing closer for this record and one of my favorite Beatles songs of all time. I guess it just serves as a reminder that not everyone can be a hit. Following this, we do see some interesting consistency on being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, because on here, those musical theatrics are upped quite a bit to the point where, yeah, the songwriting just becomes straight up obnoxious. We're just veering from instrumental instrumental and sonic palette to instrumental and sonic palette, to the point where it's just jarring, and I think the song gets lost in the sauce, and it doesn't even come off remotely experimental. The closing track of Revolver is wilder than this. This track to me just sounds like we've spent too much time in drama club. Within You, Without You is another track in the Beatles catalog where George Harrison kind of pulls the boys into a sound and style that's reflective of his deep exploration into Hinduism, ragas, and his experiences with Ravi Shankar at the time. And while I know tons of ink has been spilled about this point in George's life and just how deeply devoted he was to all of this, the song in and of itself still does come off like, I don't know, some weak cultural tourism, especially sandwiched with a bunch of other tracks that don't really reinforce it in any other way. From here, there's nothing quite like the whiplash of transitioning into When I'm 64 that makes me think about the importance of album flow. I mean, it's a cute song on its own, but it's quite jarring to kind of hop into this cute, jaunty little tune about aging together in love. Meanwhile, Lovely Rita, I think is just merely okay. The tune is just very mild as far as Beatles songs go. And when we think about like the very colorful and classic cast of characters that have turned up in Beatles songs over the years, be they Eleanor Rigby or Nowhere Man or Dr. Robert or Sexy Sadie, so on and so forth, and the stories that like inspired these tracks, is Lovely Rita nearly as inspired as any of these moments or ideas? Not really. Probably one of the more forgettable Beatles song concepts across their catalog. And then finally, Good Morning, which is my last major complaint in the track list on this record, is all kinds of grating, especially with those really shrill group vocals, the aggressively mixed lead vocals, the horn sections really overpowering just about everything too. It is just not a pleasant or interesting song. But with that being said, I will reinforce some earlier points here and say that this is still a groundbreaking and super influential record. I would absolutely positively not remove it like from the, Beatles or rock pantheon. I do not wish for it to be changed. I do not wish for it to be erased or anything like that. I'm not making some insane claim here that music and some other shit would be the same if this album disappeared, that it's like massively overrated and so on and so forth. I guess here's my major gripe with it. Does it bring the Beatles' strongest crop of songs to the table? Not really. Track for track, pound for pound, I think Revolver is better. I think freaking White Album is better. I think Abbey Road is better. There's even a case to be made that like a Magical Mystery Tour has more fire on it, track for track, than Sgt Pepper's. I'm sorry, but it's true. But yeah, overall, I do not think Sgt Pepper's is a 10. There are too many dud songs on the record for it to be a 10. Quality and interesting and groundbreaking production, yes. A cool concept and an array of versatile influences and styles flowing throughout the album that were groundbreaking for the time, yes. But songs and song ideas, this was far from the Beatles' best, and I feel like that's kind of a necessary part of the equation for a best album, especially an album that I would consider to be perfect track for track, an album that is flawless front to back, 10 out of 10. This album is most certainly not that in my eyes. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Is this album a 10 out of 10? What do you think about my thoughts on any of the tracks that I think are, kind of lessers from the record, pale in comparison to the highlights, especially on the front end? And yeah, I will hear from you guys again very soon in the comments, be it with anger or understanding. And yeah, over here next to my head is another video that you could check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Sgt Pepper's Forever.